Hello fellow gamers, I'm Christopher Christman of Retro Game Network, and coming up next, a look at last week's retro video game news on the RGN Files for the week ending Saturday, June 30th, 2018. In the RGN Files this week, Nintendo has officially released their latest wave of the NES Classic Edition emulation devices. The NES Mini, as is more commonly known as, was first released back in 2016 and offered a total of 30 games from the NES or Famicom libraries that was fit to be played on modern high-definition televisions. Despite selling 2.3 million units worldwide, Nintendo stopped production of the systems in April of last year, however stated that a new batch would be made available this summer, with devices being made available as of this past Friday. The systems became notorious mostly for their potential hackability, with video game crackers successfully being able to load not only the entire NES library to the device, but other video game libraries from other systems as well. It should be noted, however, that Nintendo has been made aware of these potential hacks and may have changed the kernel on their devices, making previous hacking methods unusable. The current production of NES Classic Edition consoles are planned to be more widely available until the end of the calendar year and sells for just under $60. It's been a long time coming, however this past Friday was the night that we all grew up. National toy store chain Toys R Us closed its doors for the last time throughout the United States as of the end of the business day this past Friday. With roots going back to 70 years ago, with the first children's supermart opening back in 1948, Toys R Us have been struggling financially for many years. Internationally, Toys R Us has also been going out of business or getting sold off over the past few months. Last April, stores in Switzerland, Germany, and Austria were sold to UK toy company Smythe, and Australian stores are expected to close down shortly, with the announcement being made about 2 weeks ago. Over in Canada, the remaining 82 stores will remain in operation alongside of their online e-commerce website. Store chains such as Walmart and Target, alongside of internet retailers like Amazon, have been blamed indirectly for the decline in sales recently. Toys R Us is currently saying on their official website to promise them just one thing: don't ever grow up. A new retro computer hardware project is currently in the works that hopes to continue where the Commodore 8-bit computer line left off. The C256 Phoenix project is the concept of retro computer cracker Stephanie Allaire, who came up with the idea as a homage to her computer hacking past. In design, the computer will have the same context and limitations as if a new Commodore machine had been released in 1987. The new device will offer a variety of customized audio, video, and system controllers, and will feature a 65C816 CPU, 4 megabytes of RAM, an internal 3.5-inch floppy drive, mini input and output, as well as DVI video output. Various ports will allow connectivity with original Commodore joysticks, floppy drives, datasets, and cartridges. It will also offer connectivity with modern computer keyboards. Most importantly, the computer is planned to be 100% compatible with all original Commodore 64 equipment and software. There's currently no word on a potential price or release date, but Allaire has stated that there will be more news coming on about the project sometime this summer. This past April, Retro Game Network had reported on the upcoming third volume of Atari Flashback Classics to be released by ACT Games in association with Code Mystics. The latest edition of these collections would offer Atari fans a brand new set of video games not only from the 2600 and arcade days, but from the Atari 5200 era as well. It was previously announced that this was to be released a few months back. However, because we couldn't provide an official detail on that information, we classified it as coming soon. New details about the release were offered at the recent E3 convention in Los Angeles, where it was announced that the new set would be made available sometime during the fourth quarter of this year. In addition, we also learned that the set will not only be offered for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, but for the Nintendo Switch platform as well. There is currently no word on pricing or medium availability at this time. However, previous editions of the collections were made available on both virtual and physical optical media platforms and sold for just under $20 per set. A homebrew developer is currently working on bringing a port of the 1982 arcade title Baby Pac-Man to home consoles for the very first time. Baby Pac-Man was a video game and pinball hybrid that was originally unauthorized by Namco and was produced by Bally Midway. The home version is currently in development by Bob DiCrescenzo and is currently being developed for the Atari 7800 video game console. Highlighting the pinball aspect of the game, that particular portion of the title has been emulated, originally using the code from the creator's title Crazy Bricks, with some alterations done to the ball physics by incorporating appropriate gravity pulls. The pinball segment even offers the chance to bump the table, just like on actual pinball tables. Programming began on the game this past April, with DiCrescenzo making various work-in-progress ROM images available. There's currently no word as to when the game would be completed, but previous works by the creator have also been made available for purchase on physical media in various configurations, usually via Atari Age. Coming up next, a personal viewpoint on one of this week's featured stories with our Wimho, well, in my humble opinion, commentary. The end of an era has finally reached us. After 70 years in business in one way or another, Toys R Us has officially shut down shop within the United States. No matter what era of video games you grew up with, chances are very high that you walked into a Toys R Us store at one point in your life. Now, this isn't the first national toy store chain to call it quits. Child World shut down back in 1992, while Lionel Kitty City went defunct in 1993. And while a reboot is planned for later this year, KB Toy Stores closed down in 2009. Which brings us to this week's question. Are brick-and-mortar stores dedicated to toys and video games eventually going to completely disappear? Well, in my humble opinion, for the most part, it is inevitable. However, there are a couple of exceptions. When it comes to toys in general, there are way too many big-box stores out there where a family can do all of their shopping and get everything from groceries to electronics, from oil changes to toys, all at the same location, which is very convenient for families since changing stores isn't needed. Now, meanwhile, online retailers also make it very easy to buy toys and other goodies through the internet without ever having to leave your chair. Now, while there is nothing quite like browsing through a toy store with your kids, in today's fast-paced world, it's just not nearly as common as it was as little as a decade ago. As far as video games are concerned, it's also for the most part eventually going to happen. National chains like GameStop rely on physical media games for their sales, and with the potential of next-generation systems going digital only when they're released within the next few years, their future is also uncertain. Now, the only type of video game store that I think is safe, believe it or not, are ones dedicated to retro gaming, since these are not just considered games, but in many cases collectibles as well. It's similar to going to an antique furniture store, but a heck of a lot more fun. These stores are usually independently owned and operated in a ma-and-pa type setting, which has its own set of battles, of course. However, as long as there is a market for these types of games in some form, I actually feel that these stores will last longer than the national chains. Seeing Toys R Us go out of business was just enough to have a tear come out, as I have many memories of browsing through the flip cards with the video game's box art on them, grabbing the sales slip, taking it to the counter, and then later taking my game home. However, it was more than just buying the game itself. I have the memories of my family and myself browsing through the malls, going out to dinner, maybe even taking in a movie. For me, it wasn't just going to a toy store, but getting to spend time with my family at a young age, which is something that some families in the modern era could actually take a tip from. As an adult, I come to appreciate these types of memories. It wasn't just spending my hard-earned allowance to get a new game, however, it was rather the creation of memories that I will cherish forever. And while I may be an adult today, hopefully I will never have to fully grow up. And that is my humble opinion. And finally, this week I wanted to give everybody an update in regards to future Twitch broadcasts. This past week was a dud as far as getting some of the additional testing that needed to be done completed due to things that were going on behind the scenes. Next week, however, I will be able to get the testing done that I had intended to accomplish, and with this in mind, we hope to bring viewers a brand new official Twitch stream on Tuesday, July 10th. To be kept up to date on the latest information when we return, be sure to follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/RetroGameNet. That's it for this week's edition of the RGN Files. For those listening on VGM on FM, please stay tuned. There'll be more music coming up shortly. For complete details of any of this week's stories, visit RetroGameNetwork.com. And don't forget to check us out on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Retro Game Network, and on Twitter and Twitch at RetroGameNet. For the RGN Files, I'm Christopher Chrisman. This week's news story is provided by the following: the Atari Age Forums, Generation Amiga, Medium, True Achievements, US Gamer, VG 24/7, Vintage is the New Old. The opinions expressed in our Wimho commentary segment are not necessarily those of all contributors or affiliates of Retro Game Network.